Greetings. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I'm so glad to invite you to be with us today at the Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. If you are a first time visitor watching us, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about who we are by sharing our list of values. And so, what we value at the Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, number one, is spiritual growth and practice. That's the reason we come together, and it's the reason we exist, is to support one another along the spiritual journey. We value love. We value appreciation and community. We have a wonderful community of people that support one another and our friends and fellow travelers on the spiritual path. We value freedom. We're a lot of free thinking folks here at the Center for Spiritual Living. We value creativity, health and wholeness, generosity, and financial well-being. Our mission at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. Our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence, and our vision is a world that works for everyone. And this mission, purpose, and vision is the same as it is for the larger organization. We are just one of many centers for spiritual living that are located all over the United States and Canada and the rest of the world. So if there is one in your community, please go and visit. It's even worth traveling from your community to another to find yourself a center for spiritual living. So today we're going to talk about our theme of oneness, and the theme for the organization this month is Cosmic Connections. And that's kind of, it's a big topic. It's a really interesting one. And so this month we're going to talk about different ways that we can get to that feeling of oneness. You know, we can talk about it and we can understand it on a philosophical level or a psychological or scientific, but that doesn't mean that we feel it. And that's what we're going to talk about, myself and my guests for this month. And so our guest for today is our very own practitioners, Donna Davis and Norma Anderson, or the Andervis ladies. Hello. Good. I was going to say good morning, but it's afternoon. How are you ladies doing?
We're good. We're good.
Good. Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to let you take it away with an invocation, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about our topic for the day.
Okay.
So take it away, ladies.
So I invite you now to just take a deep breath and get centered in yourself as we connecting to the allness, connecting to the one, and connecting to each other. I recognize that God is everywhere. This wonderful universal life force flows through all things and around all things, but is not swallowed up by any one thing. And because I know that I sit in that place that is a part of the universe, then I know that I too am a part of it. I am one with the divine energy that is God. And since that is true for me, I know it's true for each and every person. And today, as we talk about prayer and connection to the one, opening our hearts, opening our minds, and how we connect in different ways. I know that as the truth comes forward today, that each and every person that is listening or to be listening later will be able to recognize that divine spark within themselves, to be able to connect to that at any time and any place in their lives. Or in my life, I can connect always. Just becoming aware and opening my mind and my being to that thing that is life. I'm so grateful for life. I'm grateful for how it shows up in my world, how it shows up for each and every person. I'm grateful for the ever ebb and flow of this wonderful spiritual community and of all people as we all connect to the one. I release this now into the law, knowing that it's already done. And so it is. And so it is.
And so it is. I love how you pray. That's why I have you do it all the time. I just love to to feel that and to
Yeah.
just start our time together with a beautiful opening like that.
Thank
Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to talk today about spiritual mind treatment, which is our word for affirmative prayer, our phrase for affirmative prayer.
you.
And it's a thing that makes us unique at Centers for Spiritual Living from other kind of traditions. And I have to be honest, when I first heard that phrase, spiritual mind treatment, it kind of turned me off. I thought it was a little weird. Like, what does that mean, spiritual mind treatment? The first time I heard it was like, that's a strange thing. So it is a little bit different. What was your take on it, you ladies? Anybody had any weird reaction to that name?
I didn't have a weird reaction at all, actually. I was curious about it, but I didn't bother me.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it was when we first started coming to the center, they did a lot of going within. And I tell people I went really deep because I would just kind of go out.
Norman here, go within, and it certain she's got some Z's going, right?
Learn about the actual steps, and you have something to actually focus on and know kind of what's coming next instead of just letting your mind wander.
Right. Yeah, so we're gonna talk here about plugging into the power of prayer and how prayer in Centers for Spiritual Living in the Science of Mind is different than in other denominations, right? Like how we use it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna put a list up here, and you can chime in, Donna, Norma, about how these different kinds of prayer, affected you growing up. So these are common types of prayer, right? We've got blessing and adoration, which is praising God. And I think that just feels really good to do. And I did it as a kid. I do it now. I feel like I'm doing it when I'm singing or when I'm out in nature.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah,
about you guys?
We do it too. I do. For me, it's that gratitude moment. That's when you go into that praising of God, is just sitting in the gratitude for everything, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and then it becomes this huge adoration, and you sit in that space. And I've done it my whole life as a child growing up in the Christian faith, and then doing it even more in CSL now.
Yeah.
In the denomination that I grew up in, there wasn't really very much emotion behind anything. So I wouldn't think that praising God is an expression that was used ever there. Worship, adoration, that kind of thing, maybe, but praising, no. So there was none of that in the denomination that I grew up in.
That's interesting. So then the next kind of prayer, the prayer of petition or supplication, which is like asking, for me, it feels like more like a begging kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that was a prayer that I can remember doing as a kid, that just, that kind of, as I said, begging that doesn't feel real good right now.
Yeah.
And where I am today.
That one was a little bit more familiar in my background. It was because we were so, nothing was personal or anything that what we could take credit or blame for. Asking God, everything was what God wanted for us or what God believed we needed, or so, we'd ask for everything.
Right. Yeah. And then intercession, when we're asking for what others might need, like, so praying on somebody else's behalf.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And which is also, ours is a little bit different. So I'm showing what typical prayer is and how it's different for us. Let me put us up here on the page. Why is that not happening? Anyway, I was trying to bring us both into the view here, but it's not working. So, okay. Anyway, so the next one then, Thanksgiving, we've already kind of talked about that. And then this last one, imprecation, I guess is how you say that, used to invoke God's judgment on the wicked and thereby avenge the righteous.
I don't think I've ever done that.
No. Yeah, that doesn't appeal to me either, right? So like casting a spell on somebody or something, right? Like they did something bad and God take them out.
Yeah, like a karmic prayer, I guess, asking for karma to take.
Mhm.
I guess because I've never practiced it, I'm not aware of how it works.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, those are the typical kinds of prayer that most of us probably grew up with, and a lot of people still, probably most people still do. You know, when they think of prayer, they're thinking of something along those lines, right? It's either praise or thanksgiving or begging for something, for yourself, for somebody else, or for God to give you favor,
Hmm.
right? Let my team win, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So what we do is really different, don't you think?
I think so. It's
Very
definitely different.
Yeah, yeah. So part of the reason that I asked you to be guest today is because we're going to be starting a class on treatment and meditation real soon, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes. And I know you were real excited, Donna, about teaching that class.
Yeah, because there's freedom in it. Once you understand the steps, there's freedom in it. You don't have to hope that you know what the next words are that come out of your mouth, because you know the steps. You automatically just drop into them. Yeah, each time, with practice, of course. But mostly it's becoming aware. Like, I remember when I first started doing it, I was like, I feel like I'm lying to myself somehow when I say, and like, when we get to that step of treatment, that's like that affirmation part. I was like, but I really don't have it right now. So I feel like I'm lying to me, you know? But
Yeah.
then once you really start to get what it is, then you're like, oh yeah, I'm not lying to me. It's this weird thing. I don't even know when it flipped for me, but I did enough time to where I started seeing the truth of being. And once that happened, I was like, oh, I feel silly now.
Yeah, so we probably should, for people who aren't familiar with spiritual mind treatment, and I heard just yesterday, in fact, a friend of mine was saying that the whole name was actually spiritual mind healing treatment,
Oh.
right? Which is such a different thing, spiritual mind healing treatment. And
Yeah.
so it came out, back in the 30s, the 40s, when Ernest Holmes was around, and people would do treatment like you go to a doctor for a treatment, right? You would go to a physical therapist for a treatment or a chiropractor for a treatment. So when you had something going on in your life, you go to a religious science practitioner, right? A science of mind practitioner, and go for a spiritual mind healing treatment, which was to kind of get your mind right around whatever the issue is that's going on in your life.
And see, that's what I appreciated about it, is because it blended the faith with science. There was actually a process that you can follow and get results. So it was a scientific process that actually got manifestations for what you were asking for, not just a hope and, oh God, please,
Right. So instead of begging and pleading, what we do is we affirm what it is that we want to experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Coming from a place of faith, of knowing that this possibility is out there, or it wouldn't even be in my consciousness.
Right.
And then lining yourself up with that and claiming it from that field of infinite potential and possibility.
Definitely.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the lining up of yourself, that's where the work comes in. Because before, when I would pray and say, I beg and plead that this happened, I wouldn't line myself up for the vibration of that thing. I never did. I would still be in this lower vibration and then wonder why nothing happened.
Yeah.
Oh, just didn't like me today,
Right.
And then once I realized, oh, when it comes to treatment, it's kind of like, as a nurse, I tell somebody, okay, this is your discharge orders. You have to do the discharge orders. You need the follow-up, treatment. You need to be taking the medication, i.e. doing the spiritual practices at home. And you need to be lining yourself up with the health in order for the healing to manifest the way you need it to manifest. So if you're asking for a certain thing and then doing the opposite of it, then you're not going to ever see it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I shared this story on this forum recently, but when my kids were little, my husband and I we were taking the kids and my mother-in-law and everybody in the van, like our little minivan, to Disney World. And the tire blew out while we were on I-75. and the car was starting to swerve a little bit, and my mother-in-law started going, "Oh, Jesus. Oh, Lord Jesus, save us." And she going into this, this prayer, which was very scary. I mean, for her, it was praying, but for us, it was just getting everybody more, anxious and just amping up the anxiety for everybody. And my son, like from the back seat, Justin had to be like 4 or 5 years old, and he goes, "Hey, Grandma." And she says, "What, baby?" And he says, "Stop that praying."
Oh, no.
She got so offended. But it was like it was a prayer, but it wasn't really a prayer because it was really more about the fear that she was having than anything that was calming, or like it was not pulling us into a calm space, right, of prayer. It was making us more afraid. So stop that praying, Grandma. So yeah, so you mentioned the 5 steps. I'm going to put them up on the screen so people can see what those are. And that first step, recognition. And I love, we've got this little, I don't know what you call it, with an acronym, right? Are you ready to receive? So the first step is recognition. The idea that there's only one God that's all knowing, all powerful, and everywhere present, right? The omnis, as I like to call them. Yeah. And then the second step, why don't you tell them about that, Donna?
Oh,
I think.
man. So if God is everywhere, unification. That's the unification. That if God's everywhere, then it is where I am. Because God can't be everywhere, not where I am.
Yeah, yeah. So people like to think, like folks that say, we kick God out of schools and stuff like that. It's like, we can't kick God out of school. You can't kick God out of anywhere. God is everywhere, whether you want it or like it or believe it or not. It's just all present, and I'm part of that. And that's a pretty radical shift, I think, for a lot of folks.
I think that was the biggest shift for me, was that unification. Because it was easy. I grew up knowing that God was everywhere, and that God, he sees you when you're here, he sees you when you're there, he's everywhere. Well, if that's the case, then everywhere means where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
And that part there was, wait a minute, I can't be mean to God, because I was being mean to myself, my negative self-talk. I'm being mean to God, So it was that piece there that really was the clicker for me.
Yeah. And then the next step, realization. You want to speak on that one, Norma?
Yeah, that step is basically the knowing. This is the truth I claim for my situation. You know that this is the capital T truth, not the thing that everybody sees and walk around in this zombie-like state. We know that we are one with the Almighty, the omnipotent, omnipresent. So this is the step that brings it on home. For me, this is the heartbeat of treatment, because until you embody it, it's just words.
Yeah,
right.
You have to realize it. It's this deep connection to the oneness, and then once you realize, oh my gosh, I'm a part of it. That's why sometimes I call it universal life energy, because I'm like, I can't say life is everywhere and then life is not where I'm sitting. So once that happens and I become aware of it, oh my gosh, then everything that is God is also me.
Right.
And that is, like she said, the big, like, oh wow. So if God's abundance, that means I'm abundance, even though my circumstances says I'm not. It's just the circumstances that I can see with my 2 bare eyes. But the truth is, underneath all of that is the abundance of the divine, because God's everywhere.
Right. And wherever we are right now is a temporary situation. It's a temporary circumstance.
Exactly.
Right. We're moving through whatever the trauma is, whatever the drama. Again, we're not pitching a tent. We're not going to hang out there for a long time. You move on through. And spiritual mind treatment is what helps you move through.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. We recognize the presence, we align ourselves with it, and then we speak the truth of what it is that we want to see in our lives and what we want to manifest.
Yeah.
Then the next step is
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
You know, Cindy, there was one other thing too that I wanted to point out. Um, for me, the realization step too is like when you realize that you have a yellow car. Suddenly, you bought a yellow car, and I've never seen yellow cars before, and all of a sudden, every other car is yellow
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I opened myself up to seeing yellow car. Right? So it's the same principle. I open myself up to seeing whatever it is that I'm looking for, and then guess what? You're going to start seeing it everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the truth.
So I just
Mm.
wanted to very helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. So then we said the next step was Thanksgiving,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
right? But we're giving thanks knowing that the thing is already done, right? Like it's
Mhm.
on its way.
Yeah.
The package is in the mail, the thing is done, and I'm grateful for that. And the gratitude comes from that space of knowing that it's complete,
Yeah.
Because it's a
right?
known fact. It's proven that when you show gratitude, more things are given. So when we're grateful for what we already have, we're grateful for what we know is coming, as if it's already here, it manifests.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the last step,
You let go of it, honey. Let go of it. Don't sit there and wallow in it. Just release it. And the thing of it is, like, now when I do the realization and then Thanksgiving, and then when I get to release, I'm like, you know what? When I release it, I'm not saying that I want exactly that thing, because my mind probably don't even know something that's bigger and better. So when I release it, I'm releasing my attachment to it. Hey, this or something, whatever happens, happens. Let's just put it in divine mind. Release it.
Yeah, I love the example that says, do you plant a seed and keep digging it up to see if it's growing?
Yeah.
No, you don't. You release it. You
Right.
let it do what it's going to do.
Mhm.
exactly. Your job is to plant the seed.
Right.
Mhm.
Pick the seed that you want to plant, right?
Yeah.
And nurture that, but you don't go in there digging it up, like you said, Norma.
And when the weeds of negativity show up,
Mhm.
come out because that's not what you planted. When you see some little, weed coming up, you can say, "Oh, that's not what I planted. I planted this. Oop, thank you, but no thanks."
And that's
Yeah.
where other tools like meditation or what have you come in. But
Mhm.
Yeah, and pick the weeds out when they're small, because once they grow, man, it's
They
such a
choke, they choke your poor little seed dies.
yes, yes. So I want to give people some examples. You have any recent ones of prayer, of treatment and manifestation?
We got to pick one, huh?
One
Well,
or two. We could be here a long time if we went into too many of them.
man. Okay, so check it out. The biggest manifestation for me. I wanted to have a space that we could have a brick and mortar place for your Phoenix is Rising, a wellness center, if you will, where people get massage and facials and whatnot. But I wanted it to be a place that I can also live, because I wanted to infuse the energy of homey vibe with it, and so I did a treatment and I said, okay, this is what I want. I want to be able to have parking. I want to have no neighbors up on me like a residential area. I wanted to be in a space that clients could find us easily. I wanted to have a place that had history and was entrenched in this beautiful town of Ocala. All of those things. Well, lo and behold, we're here.
did you know?
We didn't know the
You didn't know
how.
the how.
We didn't know how it was coming to us, who was going to be used for it. And then we ended up just having connections with this wonderful individual that was like, wait a minute now. And we're like, huh. So God's using you this way. Thank you. It's wonderful the way it unfolded. We would have never in a million years said, oh, this is possible.
Mhm.
Because everything in our circumstance said it was not possible.
Yeah.
We didn't say, oh, the how it's going to happen, because that's the part that trips us up, is the how. Just say, this is what I want, and then I line myself up with the gratitude of that thing, and it just happens. The how unfolds. But you have to take the breadcrumbs when they show up, because it doesn't just fall out of the sky on your head, You have to do the work as you go.
Yeah.
Because you have to be in alignment with the capital T truth or the capital R reality, and not what we may necessarily be seeing with our eyes or physically thinking we're experiencing. You just know that we are one with the divine. that unification step is amazing, and that we have all the qualities within us, and
Yeah.
trust that there will be manifestations. We don't have to know the how. We shouldn't even try to be figuring out the how.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We could have never, ever
Not in the realm of
guessed that we would
possibility.
have this way.
Mhm. Mhm. There is so much to that story, y'all. I'm just, yeah.
Yeah.
I know when you moved into the place, and it hasn't been that long, I was looking and like, wow, I'm not sure I would have said yes to this one. But, you have to know what's right for you.
Mhm.
Right. And that's why, we pray for ourselves. And we can, to clarify the point about praying for other people and how we do that we do that with permission
Mhm.
from other people, right? As practitioners, sometimes, and I'm a minister, but first I'm a practitioner, right? We all are first practitioners. That someone might come to me and say, I want you to pray for my son. He's going through a divorce, and, pray for their marriage to stay together. And I can't do that. And I let people know that I can't do that because that's not my decision. That's not for me. What I can pray is for the highest and best outcome for your son. I can do that, but I'm not going to pray for a specific thing like that without having him ask me for it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get permission from people first, unless it's something like, I'm just going to pray for the highest and best, but I'm not going to pray for a specific.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where people don't understand, particularly when it comes to death and dying. Pray for my father to live or get through this, whatever. Your father may not want to get through that.
Right.
He may be ready to release and let go. So
Mhm.
that's again where you would pray for the highest and best for her father or whatever she's asking. So it would be kind of incorporating what she wants, but not how she wants it done.
Right. Right.
It's the how that we get tripped up on, because it's in the realm of our possibility and our little box of the life experiences we've had so far. This is how we know it's supposed to happen. But what if there's a greater how? And when you stick yourself in that little box, then you're tying the hands of God. You're telling the universe not to send you what you want,
Mm-hmm.
even though Spirit knows of a better way to make it happen. You've
Yeah.
just pretty much stuck God in a box.
Right.
I know
So
that.
there's always that caveat of this or something better.
Mm-hmm.
You put it out there and say this or something better, and just know that it's going to happen. And sometimes the incubation period is different, right?
Yeah.
Right. Some seeds they sprout in a couple of days, and some things take years,
Mm-hmm.
like a bamboo. That is
Yeah.
under the ground. You don't even know it's doing anything. You don't see it popping out of the ground until it's been there for some years.
Yeah.
And so you might not think anything is going on. You might be tempted to go in there and dig it up and take a look, but you ruin it.
Exactly.
So, my God.
It's just not. It's not the time. You think it's the time for you, but it's not the time.
Yeah.
If you got exactly what you wanted in that moment, would you even be able to know what to do with it?
And we experienced exactly that because we tried this,
Mhm.
beauty salon thing before, but we were pushing against everything that said now is not right. But it was what we wanted when we wanted it.
Mhm.
But the universe says, no, it's not your time.
Yeah.
It's time we just sit back and let things happen. If it was
Mhm.
time, it would happen. If it wasn't, we
Let
didn't
go
push
of
it. We let
Mhm.
go of it.
It's a much gentler way. And you know what? It takes the pressure off of you, the
Mm.
individual. When you think that I have to do everything because I da, 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 and you drive yourself insane. And then when it doesn't work out, you blame God. But
Mhm.
it just wasn't time for it, and you weren't ready to be patient and to learn because your vibration just wasn't at that same level.
Mhm.
You have to do all that work to get yourself ready to be, a marathon sprinter doesn't just get out there and say, oh yeah, today I'm going to run a 5K. They have to take their time. They have to condition their body. They have to get used to, their mental mind has to get ready for it. And then when it's time, they can run the race.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a great
even though
analogy.
the idea of that was great at the time. Yeah, I want to run this, but we all know it takes time. You have to condition. And
Yeah.
that is the biggest thing. I loved it once when you said it was more like spiritual mind training.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because each time you do it, you get clearer and clearer and easier and easier to be able to see the truth. And after a while, boom, 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 manifestation, manifestation.
Yeah. It's like it's a muscle.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
say
It's
strength.
just like building a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger you're going to get, the better you're going to get at it, the easier it gets,
Exactly.
right? And then you understand when it doesn't happen right away that it's okay. You can keep the faith
Yeah. That is
because you know there's something better.
the seed is in the soil. I don't need to dig it up. And sometimes I forget the seed is in the soil. I plant it in there and I'm like, tootle along, get lost in circumstance, hanging out in my story, and then completely forget that I planted that seed until 2 years later, boom, a little sprout. Wait a minute. There you are. I forgot all about you. And I've done that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, the reason I specifically wanted to speak about prayer now for this, this month, this segment, is that we have this election coming up.
Mhm.
There's a whole lot of fear. There's the pandemic that we're still in the middle of all this mess, and there's so much fear around. And I think it's time for us to start turning that around,
Yes.
and start speaking truth and claiming what it is that we want to see going forward in our world.
Absolutely.
Right? Take some time to get out of the circumstance, to get out of the fear and out of the appearances of what is at the moment, and put ourselves in that greater yet to be, in that alignment with the oneness, and say, Spirit, what is possible now?
Yeah. But there's a construction phase. And I
Mhm.
really felt like we were in a construction phase. It was destruction and everything was getting pulled apart and old ways of being was getting pulled apart. And 2020 was about clear vision. And in
Mhm.
order to do that, you need to do that construction phase.
Deconstruction, yeah. Deconstruction.
And then we go into that construction phase. But while that's happening, there's ugliness. It doesn't look pretty. It doesn't feel great. It uses all the strength and stamina we have to pull it all apart. But we have
Mhm.
to be willing to look at it. We might get poked by a nail or two, along the way, but we're looking at it.
And like you said, with exercising that muscle, when things come up, when we find ourselves in these situations where it seems like everything's just going crazy and the world is going crazy and, we just don't know what to do. When we've exercised that muscle of affirmative prayer, that's our first go-to. We don't automatically revert to fear and, oh my God, and, all this other crazy. You turn to what you've trained yourself to automatically revert to. You don't even have to think about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And more people that can connect. And this is not the kind of thing that, you have to wait until you have a quiet place and blah, 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 blah. None of that. It's with you always. You're always connected. You can never step out of it. And so once you have that as your tool, then no matter what is being thrown at you, if you automatically go there, it's kind of like learning to tuck and roll. You automatically tuck and roll
Mhm.
when something comes at you. And the more people are learning that, the more that we tuck and roll and the more that we come back, and then we can construct the world that we want to live in.
Right. The first two steps of treatment, the recognition and the unification, is a meditation. It's mindfulness. You could spend a lot of your day in that space.
Oh, yeah. It's a
Right.
beautiful space to be in.
Yeah. I know. I have those moments. They seem like they punctuate. I talked about this in my letter for this month, but it feels like those moments of transcendence, of like oneness, everything is so beautiful, is kind of in between all these other moments lately, especially of the fear and what's going to happen with the election. What if my family gets sick? And are we going to have enough money to do this and that? And like all of that very, human stuff that comes up. But then you have the reset button, the reset.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a daily thing, sometimes it's an hourly thing, but taking that moment to just like breathe and remember God is everywhere, even where I'm standing right here, right now, and I'm part of that.
Even if a person that's doing something opposite of what I would like for them to do, God is there also.
Yes, God is in all of it. God is in all of it. And we don't have to know. We don't have to know the how. We don't have to know all the answers. We just have to do what's in front of us, what's ours to do. Right?
And with the one baby step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I think me personally, I thought, I would have this big wow thing that then makes me this huge, I'll be in this space of, yes, oneness. But it's that, your humanity happens. Your story is going on at the same time. So that's when you're like, oh yeah, I'm in a physical body. Oh yeah, this body is going through pain. Oh yeah, this body's angry today. Whatever it is that you're going through, and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Be okay with the journey and okay with the ride.
Right. Yeah, and thanks for saying that, because I think there are folks that expect that when you get on a spiritual journey and you learn all this stuff and you start waking up, that life is suddenly wonderful all the time, and it's not. It's life still happens. Shit still happens. You just have better tools to deal with the stuff when it comes up. So you move through a little faster.
Yes.
And the more practice you have, the quicker you get through it. And and then the more you start to see, and you start to see people for their story. I tell other nurses, all the time, I'm like, listen, are you speaking to the person or the disease process that's in front of you? When you have somebody with mental illness, for example, and they come in the hospital and they're being nasty, are you speaking to that person or are you speaking to their disease process? And if you say, oh, it's the disease process, like dementia, then you don't take offense to it. Well, if somebody comes up at you and they're not awake and they're really deep in their story, you're talking to their story, not them. And the minute you can recognize who they are, it starts to fuse a little bit of love into that story. And then it just gives a little bit of ease and a little bit more. And the more of us that are doing that, the more we can have compassion for our neighbors and our friends and our enemies and those that seem like enemies.
And ourselves.
Yeah.
Huge.
Right. Because really what we're seeing out there is a reflection of what's happening in here. That's the oneness. That's the oneness. And sometimes it's great. When I'm with my tribe, I love to feel the oneness. When I'm across from somebody that's on, a different political thing or whatever, I don't necessarily want to be with that. I don't want to acknowledge that necessarily as part of who I am. But it is. The human part of us is all of it.
It's just your weights, when you go to work out a muscle, the weights are heavy.
Yeah.
Cumbersome, and they drive you crazy. But you know that if you keep using them, your muscle's going to get stronger. So you do it.
Yeah. Some people give me lots of exercise.
Join the gym. They're like, nah, forget it.
And then there's self-care. Yeah, now I rest.
Always treating, everyone always can find something out there to treat for. Something that needs to be prayed about or fixed, but when it comes to self, most of the things that we see out there starts here. So if we work on this, do a lot of treatment, a lot of introspection, a lot of self-care, it changes the way we see a lot of the things that we come across in the run of a normal day.
It does. And you just take the time. I mean, I got hooked yesterday with somebody and I had to say, I'm not going to answer this right now. I'm going to go to the woods and I'm going to sit in the trees and I'm going to pray for a while. And I'm going to go and recognize the God that is above all, that knows all that I don't know. And I'm going to remember that I can tap into that presence and I'm going to pray for what I want to see in this relationship. Not where we are right now, because this is not a pleasant place in this moment. But I want to see where we can be, like what is the best possible outcome for this situation here. And I want to focus my attention on that. right? And then give thanks for it and let it go. And and lo and behold, even if it doesn't change anybody else out there, I feel better.
Yeah.
Right? I feel better. And that's the beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you know what? It does turn around. It's
Yeah.
just awesome how that works. But I get to that place like I'm not attached to whether that person changes or not, or if I feel like they get it. It's okay because I'm okay.
Yeah.
Right. We just have to not let them drag us away from our truth.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
When you're standing and it's right in front of you, the whirlwind is happening right in front of you. Very easily, you can get caught up in the tornado of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to be aware that, oh, I'm in a tornado.
Yeah.
And
I can be the eye of the storm. I can be the center.
that is it. You're in it, but you can be the center of it.
Yeah.
You can be like, okay, I'm in it, but it's all right.
Right. And in that place, we know that in the middle of that storm, is calm.
Mm-hmm.
Calm. So all that stuff could be whipping around you. And you're just the calm in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I relate that to when I was working in the hospital. I was a secretary, and the secretary is really the hub of that floor. And everything really can be chaos, but if you remain calm, it kind of helps to bring the calm to your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're, and I've been told that other secretaries, they get all caught up in the and everything just goes crazy. But they say when I'm there, because I stand in what's mine to do, I don't buy into their crazy. It kind of draws them into the calm. They come and stand at my desk sometimes just to calm down.
Yeah. I can totally see that, Norma. Yeah. And that's another great thing too, is it's another not tool, but the idea of having people around you that can hold you in that truth when you can't find it for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why you're practitioners. That's why we're practitioners.
And that's why we go to practitioners and ministers. We hold for others, but others hold for us, because sometimes you're so deep in it that you don't realize that you're really, really in it. And so somebody else can say, okay, I can hold for you, knowing the truth. And because they're holding, you can say, yes, that's true. Okay, I'm here again.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I know Reverend Peggy did that for me many times, many times. And sometimes just hearing somebody else speaking a new possibility for you can shift everything.
Yes.
To hear her speaking bigger possibility for me than what I could see for myself in the moment was like, wow, does she really believe that? I mean, I may not believe it, but I respect her, and it looks like she believes it. So maybe there's something there. And all you need is that little bit of faith.
Mm-hmm.
The size of a mustard seed, and you can move mountains. All you need is that little bit.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do as practitioners is, open up the mind so that it can go, I can do this. I got that little bit of faith, and I'm going to believe you. I'm going to believe in it because I believe in you, and you're tapped in. And you're tapped in. Right? So we can move mountains, and we can have peace. I read an article the other day. This is going to be the subject of another conversation, but how we've been talking about racism, and are we ever, like, we're never going to see peace in our lifetime. That's a paradigm, a belief system that is BS.
Yeah.
We need to start saying, what if we collectively, what if people started saying, I'm going to see peace in my lifetime?
Yeah.
How fast do you think things would shift? Right? If we could, I mean, a few practitioners, what is it that Ernest Holmes said? Give me one person, just one that really gets it, and it would change everything.
Absolutely.
So I want to start saying that.
Mm-hmm.
That we will see peace in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Peace in our life.
I tell you, when I was younger in high school, if you told me that I would walk around with a cell phone, I'd tell you, nah, that's not possible. people.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about this web. I mean, look at us now, for goodness sakes. And that wasn't that long ago that
No.
things were created. And where was this Wi-Fi all along? It was
Yeah.
there. We just needed to tap into it.
Right.
So the peace is there. We
The
just need to tap into it.
Yeah. No more racism.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine? Can you
Yeah.
imagine? That's right. Like imagine in our lifetime, people not being judged by the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
It just brings me to
People.
tears.
Mm-hmm.
Shivers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how about we do can you do another example? You're just so good at it. Of a prayer to close us out.
Yeah. So usually we need a purpose, right? When you start mind treatment. So what is the purpose for?
Our purpose.
To depart.
For all of us to feel that deep sense of peace, to experience it now ourselves, right here, right now.
Yeah. So that's what we will treat about is
Yeah.
purpose, is a deep sense of peace. So we just anchor down into this space that we're sitting in. Wherever we are, I anchor down into my space and recognizing the allness of the one, knowing that God is everywhere present. And the aspect of the one is peace. Peace and calm and grace. All of these is God. And since I know that I am sitting in the very essence that is the one, then that aspect that is God is me. Peace and grace. And as I breathe in that moment, the part of me that feels chaos is recognizing right now that I am one with the divine source and that that source is peace and calm. So therefore I am peace and calm. Anything outside of it becomes just an experience that is moving away from the peace and calm that exists in divine mind. Because the truth is making itself known to me. And since I'm a part of the wholeness of divine and everybody else is a part of that same wonderful stuff that is the great divine energy that is God, then they too can become aware of the peace that is God. It is in this moment that I speak my word, knowing that this peace is all that exists. This peace is the peace that passes all understanding. It is so grand and wonderful. And it is where everything is because it is nothing but this peace. We're experiencing that peace right now. In the very spot that I sit, I'm experiencing that peace. As I go about my day, I'm experiencing that peace. As I go to the election polls, I'm experiencing that peace. As I eat food with my family, I'm experiencing that peace. As I go to my job, as I play with my dog, answer my phone, speak to my neighbor, I am experiencing that same peace right now in my being. That is what I'm affirming right now for each and every person, for myself, for everyone else, to be experiencing that peace. That is the truth of being. I'm grateful for these wonderful moments of peace. I'm grateful for more of those moments of peace. I'm grateful that I am recognizing it with every single moment, every step that I make. That the same is true for everyone else. We are recognizing the peace in each other. We're recognizing the peace in our brothers and in our circumstances and in our lives. We are so grateful and we're celebrating with joy and gratitude For this is the truth of who we are. And I'm releasing my words into the law, knowing that it is being taken and planted as a seed of understanding and realization and knowing. And it is blossoming without effort in that beautiful law, knowing that the law is what makes everything come to fruition, unfolding, upward, always expressing, and calling to me that experience that is peace. And I release it into the law, knowing that it's already done. It is already coming. And I can let go of it and say, and so it is.
So it is.
Thank you, Donna. Just what I needed to come right back. So our treatment and meditation class will be starting
November 1st.
November 1st, Sunday, November 1st. What time?
We decided that we wanted to do like 5, start at 5. Was that the time we settled on?
We can't do that particular Sunday. We have a special guest coming that Sunday. Not coming, but we're going to do a love-in. We're going to do a love-in for the election.
Okay. Well, if anybody's interested in being in that class, all they need to do is just reach out to me or Norma, and we're going to try to determine a time that's going to be good for all the people who want to be on that class. I want to honor everybody and when they can show up, because it's a very long day for some people, and we wanted to be able to have a physical class at the center. So it needs to be travel time, and then making sure people can drive back home, and that's sort of thing. So if you're interested at all in taking that class, it is certificated for those who have had foundations. And if you need that class for you to become a practitioner, then I suggest that you come to the class. And we will be trying to get people that are not physically able to come to be able to join us via Zoom. So we're trying to figure out how that's going to work out.
Yeah, it's going to be a hybrid, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Some people online and some people in person, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's 10 weeks, right?
Yes, it's 10 weeks. It's a 10-week commitment that you are showing up for yourself to really learn this practice. That way we can work that muscle so it becomes your, automatic, instead of always thinking that you have to resort to fear, you will start to train yourself. So it's a work regimen.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's a great class, and it's going to be wonderful. So you guys are tag teaming it, and I'll be pitching in here and there.
Yes.
And it's going to be a good time. I think it's a great thing for us to do, again, as we're going into the fall and winter season and getting through the election and whatever happens with this COVID, that we can have that muscle and manifest what we want to see.
Exactly. And be able to do it together. Because sometimes when you first start out, it's hard to get, what am I doing? What am I saying? It's hard to get your brain through that. But, that's why you have personal trainers, somebody who can say, hey, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
That's really the meat and potatoes of it all. And sometimes somebody will say something that you'll say, that's the exact words I was looking for and could not find them.
Yeah. Classes are where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for real. All right. Anything else you want to say before we sign off here?
Anytime that you can just drop into the allness, if it's every single day, just try to take a moment where you can just do a quick little check-in. Even if you're not doing treatment, just a little check-in, a mindfulness moment, do it.
Yes.
Where you just kind of get centered and say, oh, step away from the computer and the crazy that is your life, and just step into that space of, oh yes, God is everywhere. Just that first step. Train yourself to that first step.
Thank you. Here's a quote, not a quote, an affirmation for folks to use this week. Super quick, super easy to remember. God is, I am, we are. That's a prayer within itself. All right. So I'm going to let's see, we'll do our gifts and tithes, and then, oh my goodness, we don't have Richard with us today to plug in the Zoom link. Can you guys do that? Can you do that on your end while I wrap us up here?
Yes, I will absolutely try my best.
Thank you so much. We'll see you then after this on Zoom for those who want to join us and just having an extra little chat and kind of catching up with one another, and we can talk some more about prayer or class or whatever you want to talk about.
Awesome.
So thank you, ladies.
You're welcome.
All right, let me bring
Later.
the blessing of our tithes. See you, Norma.
Bye.
All right. So now it's time for us to share our gifts. And I just appreciate everyone who gives to the center, whether they're giving of their time, their talent, their treasure. It all helps us do the work that we do and get the word out there and give people these spiritual tools and practices that help them live their lives in a way that feels better for them, and so that they can be all that they can be. And so we're going to have our little, there's ways that you can give. And we have our affirmation. So if you want to think about whatever it is that you're giving, and if you don't give to the Center for Spiritual Living, please be giving someplace. It's really important that you give what it is that you want to receive. If you want to keep the flow of money in your life going, then you give money and you give it to the place where you're spiritually fed. If you want to have friendship, then you give friendship. If you want love, you give love. Hopefully you give it all, right? So that you can have that really full, wonderful life. So I'll invite you to share this affirmation, to say it as I say it. It is the nature of life to give of itself, as it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom. It is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am grateful. And you'll see that number at the bottom of the screen, 352-320-5110. What you do is you text to that number and you put in the amount of money that you want to donate to the center, and it will come straight to our account once you set it up. It's very easy and we really appreciate it. And if you can't do it that way, you can always donate through PayPal at our website at cslocala.org. And that's it for that. And now now for our closing prayer. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. I pray you each have a fabulous week, and I look forward to seeing some of you in the Zoom chat and others next week. Have a fabulous week, everybody.